Hello and welcome to Story English Podcast, the show where real British English comes alive through stories you'll actually remember.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Clara. Today's episode, a travel tale so bizarre even Transport for London blinked twice.
It's called Why My Oyster Card Thought I Was in Paris.
Yes, my contactless payment card genuinely believed I'd hopped on the Eurostar without telling anyone.
A transnational identity crisis triggered by a bus in Brixton.
Before we dive in, here's what you'll pick up today. 3 very British phrases you'll hear on any London street, 1 useful grammar pattern for talking about unexpected outcomes, and a handful of culturally rich words that'll make your English sound effortlessly local.
And don't worry, we'll unpack all of it together at the end. But first, let's get lost. It was late October, that peculiar London hour just after sunset when the street lights flicker on but the sky hasn't quite given up on the day.
I'd been teaching an evening class in Clapham, grammar drills, verb tenses, the usual joy. My brain felt like soggy porridge. All I wanted was a hot bath and maybe a crisp packet masquerading as dinner.
You'd had one of those days where everything feels slightly out of sync.
Exactly, like my socks didn't match my mood and my coat was judging me.
Classic London melancholy.
The air smelled of wet pavement and distant fried chicken. Rain hadn't fallen yet, but it was hovering, like it couldn't decide whether to commit. I tapped my Oyster card at the reader at Brixton Station, heard the familiar beep, and shuffled on to the 35 bus heading north.
Standard commute, nothing unusual?
Until 2 days later, when I checked my TfL account.
And?
It said I'd taken a journey from Gare du Nord to Châtelet-les-Halles, in Paris, on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was elbow deep in marking essays about the passive voice.
Your Oyster card went on holiday without you?
Worse, it charged me for it. €8, or, well, the pound equivalent. I don't even know how it converted the currency.
Hold on. Oyster cards don't work outside London. They're not magic.
That's what I thought. But there it was, clear as day. International journey, Paris Metro, £7.40.
Did you maybe accidentally tap it near someone else's card?
I mean, possibly, but I keep mine in a little leather sleeve, alone, like a shy hedgehog.
A very well-travelled hedgehog.
I spent the next 48 hours in a low-grade panic, not just about the money, though £7 is 7 pints of oat milk, but about what it meant.
What did it mean to you?
That I'd lost control, that even my most mundane routines, tap in, sit down, stare blankly out the window, were now unreliable. If my card could ghost me to Paris, what else was slipping through the cracks?
Ah, so it wasn't really about the fare.
No, it was about feeling untethered, like I was drifting, and my own wallet was the only thing noticing.
So you called Transport for London?
After 3 attempts. First call, automated system told me to press 1 for journeys within the M25. I pressed 1. It said, "You have no journeys within the M25.
Helpful.
Second call, I got a lovely man named Raj, who sounded like he'd answered 800 calls that day and still believed in kindness. He checked my account, paused, then said, "Ma'am, this isn't an Oyster transaction."
It wasn't.
No, it was a contactless bank card, my debit card, that I'd used weeks earlier at a market stall in Camden. The stall owner, it turned out, had a faulty terminal. It hadn't processed properly then, but somehow, days later, it pinged through as a Paris Metro charge.
How does a Camden chip and pin machine talk to the Paris Metro?
Raj just sighed and said, "Ma'am, the payment networks, they've got their own ideas."
So the real culprit wasn't your Oyster card at all?
No, No, it was my own assumption. I saw transport charge and foreign location, and my brain stitched together a story where I was the absent-minded professor who'd wandered onto the wrong train.
Classic case of jumping to conclusions before the kettle's boiled.
Oh, don't you start quoting proverbs at me.
Too late. I've already written it on a tea towel.
But you know what? Once I understood what happened, I felt lighter.
Because the world wasn't conspiring against you. It was just glitchy, human.
Exactly. And Raj didn't just refund the charge, he apologized, said, "These things happen more than you'd think."
There's comfort in shared confusion.
That night I walked home from the tube instead of taking the bus. Just me, the drizzle, and the hum of the city. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel lost.
So your card didn't go to Paris?
No, but for a moment it made me believe I could. And maybe that wasn't entirely bad.
Right, let's unpack the language that carried us through this little odyssey. First, those British phrases you heard woven into the story.
The first one was elbow deep in marking essays.
This means you're completely immersed in a task, usually a messy or overwhelming one. You'll hear it when someone's buried in paperwork, cooking a huge meal, or yes, grading student work.
It's casual but vivid. You wouldn't use it in a formal report, but it's perfect among friends or colleagues.
Notice how elbow deep links smoothly. Elbow deep in almost becomes elbow deep in. Try saying it. I was elbow deep in laundry.
Go on, pause the video and say it out loud. Really lean into that image.
The second phrase, jumping to conclusions before the kettle's boiled.
This is a very British way of saying someone's acting rashly, making decisions without waiting for all the facts. And since boiling a kettle takes roughly 2 minutes, it implies extreme impatience.
It's affectionate, not harsh. You might say it to a friend who's already planning your wedding after one good date.
Common mistake, learners sometimes say before the water boils, but it's always the kettle, because in Britain, the kettle is sacred.
Pronunciation-wise, kettles boiled often sounds like kettles boiled, with a soft T and a quick link. Before the kettle's boiled.
And the third phrase, these things happen more than you'd think.
This is a classic British understatement, used to normalise something strange or embarrassing. It's polite, reassuring, and subtly says, you're not alone.
You'll hear it from customer service reps, doctors, even strangers on trains. It's a social lubricant.
A common error? Saying more than you think without the d, but the contraction you'd, you would, is essential. It's hypothetical.
And in natural speech, it's often more'n you'd think, with the d barely there. These things happen more'n you'd think.
Now, the grammar pattern we featured, the past perfect continuous, for explaining background causes.
We used it when Clara said, "I'd been teaching an evening class." That "had been teaching" sets the scene. It explains why she was exhausted before the main story began.
The structure is subject plus had plus been plus ing verb. It shows an action that started in the past and continued up to another past moment.
Contrast it with the past continuous. I was teaching just describes what was happening at a specific time, but I'd been teaching tells us it had lasting effects, like mental fatigue.
Here are 3 authentic examples. She'd been walking for hours, so her feet ached. They'd been arguing all week, which is why the atmosphere was tense. He'd been saving for months, so he could finally book the trip.
Notice how each one explains a state or feeling in the past by referring to an earlier ongoing action.
Try crafting your own. I'd been studying, or we'd been waiting. Say it now, out loud.
Finally, let's look at 6 culturally rich vocabulary words from the story.
First, soggy porridge.
Not just wet cereal. This is a metaphor for mental exhaustion. Brits love comparing brains to breakfast foods. My head's scrambled eggs or mine's mushy peas. It's self-deprecating and warm.
Second, drift.
When Clara said she felt untethered and drifting, she meant emotionally unmoored, not physically moving. In British English, drifting often implies passive movement through life without direction.
Third, glitchy.
A modern, informal adjective for something tech-related that's malfunctioning in small, unpredictable ways. My phone's gone glitchy again. It's not broken, just temperamental.
Fourth, faulty.
More formal than glitchy, used for devices or systems that aren't working correctly. A faulty wire, a faulty alarm. It carries a sense of inherent defect, not temporary quirk.
Fifth, terminal.
In this context, not the hospital kind, a terminal payment machine is the machine you tap your card on. In transport, a bus terminal is the end stop. Context is everything.
And sixth, odyssey.
Borrowed from Greek myth, but used lightly in modern British English to describe any long, eventful journey, even a bureaucratic one. My odyssey through council paperwork. It's humorous, slightly dramatic, but widely understood.
So, over to you. This week, try using one of those phrases in a real conversation. Maybe tell a colleague you're elbow deep in emails, or reassure a friend that these things happen more than you'd think.
And when you do, come back and tell us how it went. We read every single comment. Honestly, even the ones that say, "Your voices are too soothing. I fell asleep."
Which, by the way, we take as a compliment.
If you enjoy learning real British English through stories like this one, do consider subscribing. New episodes arrive every week, same time, same place.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.